Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you one model that has been very recently announced, which is the PXW-FS5. It is here. This is a prototype model. I am here at the hotel. The Monday between this announcement has been finally launched. I'm in Amsterdam, and so sorry for the environment I'm shooting at, but I consider that it's worth showing you this new camera. This video is also available in Spanish, so maybe it's not just now, but it is being uploaded. So if you don't understand anything about what I am saying, probably you won't understand that it is also in Spanish, but let me try to tell you that. So let's focus on the camera. Firstly, it's as you can see, very ergonomic camera, very tiny. The weight, if we detach the handle, the lens, and the grip, is just 800 grams, which is very fine, for instance, for installing it on a drone, on a underwater case, or for those applications in which I really need a very tiny camera, but very powerful, to be used. So, for instance, I have this grip here, so I can record in this position. I can put my hand in this position for high angle takes. So it's very nice. You won't get so tired. I won't say you won't get tired, but not so tired in your forearm when using this camera because of that feature. I can use it in many positions. Also, maybe you are familiar with this grip. This is very similar to FS7's. In fact, I can even order the spare parts for mounting the FS7's arm here, but in this case it's directly attached to the camera. Center of gravity is very low and slightly moved to the right, so I can work with the camera even in one hand. I can handle it very comfortably, and I can even run through the menus through a joystick I have here, and I can operate it just with one hand. Very typically, maybe you are using it with your fingers on the zoom lever. I can assign this little dial I have here to iris, and then I can work with focus on my left hand. That is, from my point of view, a very typical configuration. So this handle also has, as far as I can see, 3 assignable buttons and also a rec button. I have another one here and another one on the camera body itself. I will explain you what is the relevance of that. Things that are shared with other models in Sony. Firstly, the sensor. Sensor is a 4K Super 35 Exmor sensor, and guess that it is the same as we have on FS7 or in F5. So 4K Super 35, and it is hosted in the typical mount that we had on FS100, FS700, FS7. So the nice feature of that is that we have just 18 millimeters between sensor and top of the mount. In that distance, we have hosted also the electronic variable ND filters that I will talk about later. But at this moment, I would like to explain you a bit about the E-mount. This E-mount allows us not only to use the E-mount native lenses. This one is the 18-105 included in the PXW-F5K kit, which is the lens one. We have another one which is just the body, because maybe you want to recycle your lenses and you don't need this one. But in that case, you may need to use your lenses, typically, let's say FD or lenses, even PL lenses or EF lenses from your prior DSLR, and you can mount those lenses over this camera through an adapter. That adapter can not only be also electronic, because E-mount, as you can see here, has an electronic interface, but it can even allow me to gather more light in the sensor. This is especially designed in some cases. It depends on the third-party adapter, but you can obtain even one more stop or 1.5, more or less, something like that. But bear in mind that this sensor natively is 14 stops. Okay, we can discuss about that, how is that measured and all that stuff, but we have announced for the first time in this price range of camera the f-stops we have on this kind of sensor. More things related to the camera apart from the ergonomics and the E-mount and sensor. We have, as I was telling you, ND filters, the regular 4 wheels ND filters. In fact, you will be probably familiar to this if you have worked with the FS7, this ND filters wheel here. But we have another mode, which is the electronic variable ND filter. That means that, for instance, if you want to go from a totally open, clear ND position to a totally closed, you have 128 levels. So it's we can call it like some kind of analogic way of using the ND filter. This is based on an LCD in front of the sensor. So remember, we have only 18 millimeters. In fact, that was one of the main differences between FS100 and FS700. On 100, we didn't have any neutral density filter, and you needed to install that in front of the camera externally. On FS700, we managed to have a neutral density filter kit inside between the sensor and the mount. And now we have even a electronic variable ND filter feature. What is that useful for? Which is the important part finally. Did I say fart? Okay. The important part of that is the usage you can provide to your takes, to your footage. So imagine a typical situation. You are shooting indoors and your iris is fully open, and let's say you have an artificial but very proper lighting. Then you are following some people, or let's say you are in a wedding and you are following the bride when she's going out of the church. Then your environment, your light is obviously changing from a dark environment to a very bright environment. What is the typical thing to do? You close your iris, and when closing iris, the problem is that your depth of field increases. So the aesthetics you have on your camera is totally different indoor than outdoor. Next, one step more. We can use the ND filters, but probably on one position you can have still some overexposure on your signal, but on the next step it is still a bit dark. So in that case, you can simply use this wheel to adjust to the exact value you want to have on your of luminosity that you want to have on your sensor. Also, coming back to the sensor, as you can imagine, we have the S-Log2 and S-Log3 gamma curves. What are they typically used for? For those images in which the dynamic range, the light we are holding in the camera, is very wide. For instance, it is very typical to have overexposed clouds in the sky, and we simply keep them as totally white. Instead of that, now we can recover all those values. Or for instance, if we are shooting indoor and there is some window on the wall, typically that light will be simply white because it was overexposed. Now we can recover what is happening outside that window. And how is that done? Typically, a sensor should work with light versus output. This output can be voltage or digital values, whatever you want. And theoretically, it could be linear. So double light means double output. But what if we apply a curve like this? So the highlights are compressed. Maybe we can, if we take a look on that image, that is very similar aesthetically to, let's say, RAW, very whitish. It's with no vivid colors. But if we apply a counter logarithm, so exponential gamma curve, exponential curve in post-production, when we multiply them, it is finally linear. So we have got all the dynamic range that in the horizontal axis, which is the sensory input, the light, can be acquired, compared to a final output that is much bigger. So it's a very similar concept to high dynamic range, HDR, that is very fashionable right now. So that is why we can get the most of our sensors up to 800% or 1300%, depending on the gamma curve you are using, and that way we can work with the full dynamic range of the sensor. Well, not full, but much more than 100%. Also, bear in mind that this camera can work with a very, very wide color space, which is Gamut 3 and Gamut 3 Cine. So that is a very, very really wide color reproduction in the camera. More things. Maybe you remember I was telling you that we have one rec button here on the grip, another one here on the handle, and a third one obviously on the camera body, because we need to operate it if all the rest of the accessories are detached. Why I was commenting you that it could be important? Because we have, as in other cameras, two slots. In fact, I was explaining this with other cameras. NX3, as far as I remember, in my YouTube channel, also in this channel you are viewing now. So if I have two slots and I have three recording buttons, I can assign each of the cards to a different button. So I can command, for instance, card A from this button in the handle and the second one from the grip. What is that useful for? Which again is the important part of that. Imagine that you are shooting a live concert or some sports, a football match or a wedding, and that way you can have the whole footage on one of the cards, or simply inserting some cuts on the footage, and on the other one we can do the typical recording or even a pre-edited recording. So it's really, really useful for those situations in which I cannot have my environment under control, and I mean, we cannot repeat the take. We cannot say people, sorry, can you marry them again because I didn't catch it. So you can have all the footage on one card, and we can have a pre-editing on the other one. That is the recording mode that I like most, with that double slots for the cards. But there are the two classical ones, which is the continuous mode. So a capacity is ended, and then the second one starts with no space between them. So when you ingest that material, the second card is demanded to you. And the third mode, obviously, is having the same footage on both cards. So in that case, you can send one card to editing and the other card for color grading, or you can simply have a backup of your recording for security. So that is something very, very nice about the camera. However, the mode I personally like most is the independent recording trigger. More things about that, about the camera. Well, you have interfaces. You can see here that we have SDI here, HDMI, maybe, yeah, HDMI. We have XLR here, down here. Maybe you can see that, yeah, down here. This is the XLR, and the other one is here. It's a bit strange because if you have worked over the X70, maybe you remember that we had both XLR inputs here in the handle, but now the second one has been moved to the rear part of the camera. Why? because if we detach this, we don't want to get rid of the XLR connection. Also, maybe you have seen that I have skipped the third connection here, which is the Ethernet port. In other cameras, maybe you have seen me in my channel demonstrating NX3 with the NFC function. NFC function is basically getting your smartphone close to the NFC logo here, very similar to an espresso, to be honest, with your smartphone, and then they are connected and you can control your camera from your smartphone. So you can record, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, depending on the lens, obviously, but you can control from your, and monitor from your smartphone or tablet. That is one of the features that we can experience on this camera. There is a kind of handshake via NFC, near field connection or communication, and then they start to communicate via Wi-Fi. That is one of the applications of the wireless features on the camera. Second one is we can use Wi-Fi to transfer files. And the third one is streaming. We can do a direct streaming, no quality of service one, but we can do a streaming from the camera. But those last two features, which is transferring files and streaming, can be also done through this interface, through the Ethernet connection. So that is very interesting, especially if you are working in a very, let's say, crowded in terms of electromagnetic waves environment. So for instance, if you are shooting in a fair like IBC, maybe you are surrounded by many Wi-Fi networks and you cannot connect, or maybe you have a frequency inhibitor, and in that case you obviously prefer, if possible, to use a wired connection. More things that we have on this camera. Well, we have, as we had on the FS7, not on FS700, the multi-interface shoe. This multi-interface shoe is an intelligent and hot shoe that allows us to use some devices, in this case the UWPD audio receptor, through an accessory which is the SMAT P3, not this one. This one is simply the handler for the audio, but imagine this with a hot shoe here that can be directly attached to the camera, and then you don't have any external wire for audio, which is very, very convenient. Also, I don't remember if I have told that, but our LCD can be put in this position. Also, upside down, obviously, in any position. You can even put it like this. You can put it more to the rear. You have a second attachment here, even on the right side. So we can put it virtually anywhere we want. So this is one of the main differences with the FS7. FS7 is very flexible in terms of configuration, but in this case it's even more flexible. And well, basically this is what I wanted you to know about this camera. I considered it fair to explain to you the first audience I have for this explanation. And okay, if you have worked with those models, even if you have worked with the EX1, EX3, maybe you can recycle those batteries, the BPU batteries. You can fit the camera in continuous mode, but nothing that is really very surprising. So I hope that you can really enjoy this camera. Please come to our sessions to talk to our dealers, to our BPPs, talk to anybody that you can talk to, and especially to the users you really trust, because they can support you and they can give you some advice on the usage of this camera. But I am sure that even simply taking a look on it, you will see that it is really, really useful for almost any application you are you are working at. We have thought especially about weddings, web content creators, and all that, profiles in which easy to use but very tiny camera is demanded. So I hope you like it. I hope this video is really useful for you, and I hope to see you in many more videos. Please feel free to ask me, as I was telling you, our dealers, our sales guys, anybody from Sony, because this camera is worth it. So thank you very much indeed. See you in other videos. See you at IBC, at any other event. So thank you very much indeed.